Basically, right, what is SOAP and why it comes into, how it fits into your day-to-day development, and what is web services and what is REST-based web services and SOAP-based web services. Give me my mouse. Okay. Basically, right, you developed an application. Okay, you developed an application, something like in Java, right? And somewhere, and your simple way, right? Like, you're in your company, you developing a web application, and at the same time your company find a product which is the right fit for their business. Company found a product, okay, a product like, just like the way we developed Java. Some X company, let's say you're working in Y company and they developed a Java. You are developing a web application for Y company, and somewhere down the line, somewhere, like, somebody developed an application with a product called P1 in X company, and this product is the right fit for your company, and they want to integrate this one into with your application, whatever the application that you are developing. But they are developed this application in .NET. They developed this application in .NET. So how do you integrate between these two? This your application will make a calls, will integrate with another Java application without any issues. But the application that you need to what you call integrate is .NET application. Okay. So how do you integrate? So for that main reason, for that main different, like a different platform developed application, this is Java, this is .NET application, and this is let's say Scala, some other application. In order to integrate these applications, right, web services comes into picture. Web services, a services which will be used in web applications to integrate between different platforms like Java. And if you consider Java as a platform, there is a .NET application. So how do we so web services comes into picture, right? You understand now where web services fits into. So what are the different types of web services available? What are the different types of web services available? One is SOAP-based web services. Another one is REST-based web services. So in simple way, think like this, right? Anything, if something it happens, this is kind of like some specification. Anybody can implement their own style. In simple, in blind way, we're going to say this is the car. Somebody can implement BMW car. Somebody can implement Honda car, right? Something like that. Not exactly, but something like that. Just get the sense. So web services has a specification, and again, somebody can implement here REST, right? Spring-based REST services, Jersey-based REST services. Again, somebody can implement, right? So this is a pure specification, and whoever want to implement, they can implement. So earlier, this has been introduced, REST has been introduced somewhere in 2003, 2004 kind of thing, but SOAP has been there since the beginning. Okay, so next. So web services are web application components, and in that web services there are some definitions. WSDLs. What is WSDLs? WSDL stands for Web Services Description Language. Web Services Description Language. WSDL is Web Services Description Language. WSDL is an XML based language for describing web services. WSDL is XML based language for describing web services. What does it mean is see, Java you wrote in .java classes, right? .NET will be wrote in some other classes. So how the better communication will happen is with web services and WSDL, and so what they come up with, okay, so you know Java can read XML files. .NET also can read, anybody can read XML files, right? So they come up with a standard called XML. The whatever you want to communicate, right? If you want to send some data from Java to .NET and you want to get some data from .NET to Java, so what you can do, you convert your data from Java, your object, into XML format and then send that data so that .NET can consume that XML format instead of consuming your object, as Java doesn't understand, .NET doesn't understand Java. So this XML will be consumed by .NET, and once it is done, it can return it back another XML and Java can consume it. So XML based language for web services, and this is a standard that has been like agreed across the world. Okay, so SOAP is Simple Object Access Protocol. SOAP is Simple Object Access Protocol. This is also an XML based protocol for accessing web services. SOAP also based on XML. This is also based on W3 recommendation. So what is the difference between WSDL and what is the difference between WSDL and a SOAP? Right? You may get into your mind like a SOAP message is an XML document which is used to transmit your data. WSDL is an XML document which describes how to connect and make requests to your web services, which means let's say, see, somebody consumes it, somebody, like say this guy .NET, okay, simple way, .NET, this guy wrote some application, right? So this guy, your .NET, you want to integrate into Java, your application. So this guy will write some definitions here, okay, and he shared those definitions to you. What those definitions are? Okay, let's say he has a application called get application, get all products and insert a product. These two are there he is having. So here these two definitions will be there in this XML. This XML will be same XML need to be used here as well. Okay, I'm just going with theory. I'm not doing an example here. I will go directly into REST because nowadays nobody used SOAP. But in interview, everybody asks what is the difference between SOAP and REST. That is the reason I'm explaining SOAP. What is web service? SOAP based web services. Okay. So this XML will be given one time. This XML will be provided by whoever developed .NET product, and Java will integrate into its Java code using Maven plugins. There are bunch of plugins are there. Maven plugins you in your pom.xml. Okay, in your pom.xml you will configure this, how to read these files, how to convert this XML file into Java, kind of plugins will be there automatically. So now you got, so here also you got get function, insert function. Two functions are there in this definition. Okay, now using SOAP, you will ask for get function, you will ask for insert function. So get function required what? product, what kind of products you want. So you will pass that products in XML format to .NET. And again, if you want to insert, you will send the product ID, all this into XML format into .NET using SOAP based communication. Okay. So a SOAP message is an XML document which is used to transmit your data. WSDL is an XML document which describes how to connect and make requests to your web services. So you got my point, right? So then basically SOAP messages are data you transmit. WSDL tells you what you can do, how to make the calls. Here you can better understand here. In simple terms, if you have web service of a calculator, WSDL tells you about the functions that can implement. You can add plus function, minus function, subtraction, multiplication, right? Or expose to the client, add, delete, subtract. So whereas SOAP using actual performing actions. So when you enter numbers, when you click on plus, that is the action actually happened. You getting my point, right? Somebody will implement, somebody already implemented your remote functionalities to connect to the TV from your remote. So that is WSDL. And you the one who is communicating using the buttons. That is SOAP. Okay. So whereas using SOAP you actually perform actions. So SOAP and WSDL are apple and oranges. We should not compare them. Okay. So this is the important. So this so let me show you WSDL sample. This is how WSDL file will be there. What it will have? There are a function called get book price and get book price response. Okay, this is one definition. This is the response for that. If somebody asks get book price by passing ISBN, title, number of pages, then .NET will accept all these things. And let's say I'm using just .NET just for your understanding. Okay, there may be n number of scenarios. Even Java to Java communication also can happen with the web services. Okay, number of pages. So once you provide, the application will process and respond back with current price and currency. This is the WSDL. You will send it to Java file, .NET class. This is the file that has been developed in .NET in terms of XML, WSDL, and this file will be shared to Java. This is Java application. This will be shared and integrated here. Okay. So now come back here. What is SOAP? So this is the SOAP request. What you are doing here? You are providing actual values. You are providing actual values of the title, ISBN, and calling the get book price from this application, and these are the number of pages. So if you pass this input as a request from Java to .NET, for example, then you will get this response. Currency price, USD. If you observe, these tags has been very defined in your currency price, currency, all has been defined already in your WSDL. So if you won't get anything extra apart from whatever it mentioned in your WSDL definitions. So okay, that is all about SOAP. So what is the disadvantage here? What is the disadvantage here? So today this application P1 generated a one WSDL file, okay, with the 4 functions, and they provided this WSDL file to another application called P2. So they integrated this 4 functions WSDL file into our application and started communicating. Everything went fine. So this guy developed 2 more functions. So 2 more functions. What you need to do? You need to share again the new file to P2 function, P2 application, and they need to integrate again. They need to properly integrate into their application, and then they need to deploy it. So what is happening here is, even though these two applications are independent, because of the each time when you change in one application, you need to modify another application irrespective of the changes that you introduce, right? So it's happening, tightly coupling happening, right? Tightly coupling happening, like, it's very tedious work, right? So that is where REST comes into picture. What is REST? REST doesn't have any standards. First thing, REST doesn't have any standards. Like you need to have WSDL file, you need to write in XML file, you need to do blah blah blah. Those kind of standards REST doesn't have at all. And in SOAP, right, all the time the communication happens between these two applications in XML. Lot of boiler code will be there, lot of boiler code, which means each element you need to have a lot of tags, you need to define tags, and you need to explain what tag it is, all the blah 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 stuff. You need to do a lot of boiler code, unnecessary code you keep on generating. Okay, so instead of that, what REST says is, REST is representational state transfer. It doesn't have any protocols. It just just gives some clear specifications. I mean, not even specifications. It says like if you are writing, all you need to communicate is how can I say? All you need to communicate is like URL based communication in a simple way. What it says is, okay, there is a, let's say there is an application called broker, and there is a method called get broker details, get number of brokers. There are 2 functions. Okay, so what it says is, okay, so let's say this application is running on 9000 app. Okay, so what they'll say is host name 9000 app, and then app name and get. So it will go to get broker, or else if you want something else, broker / number. So it will go to number function. It makes very simple. You don't need to follow any standards. Okay, only thing is you always need to use proper ontology for this URL, Okay, so representation state transfer, REST is not protocol but an architectural style. It doesn't have any specifications. You can write whatever the way you want, and REST messages should be self-contained and should help consumers in the controlling the interaction between the provider and consumer. Another good advantage is, let's say P1 application, there is a P2 application, the communication happens, right? You can communicate in XML, you can communicate in JSON, you can communicate text, whatever the format that you want, you can communicate using REST based applications, REST based communication. Okay, so that is one part. Keep that, this is the REST. Okay, so in REST, like I mentioned, it simply says how you can do it. So anybody can implement to their own implementations. Like Spring has its own implementation. There is an application, there is another small framework called Jersey. They have their own implementation. Then somebody has their own implementations. Okay, we are going to talk about Spring REST. Okay, as we are learning Spring. Okay, keep that in mind. And let me jump on to some other topic. Why do we need Spring? We are going to talk about Spring Boot plus microservices. Spring Boot and microservices. These two are together. Okay. And then we'll integrate that REST into here and see end program. Okay. We talked about REST. Let me talk about this. Microservices. Basically microservices or micro experiences, they will call it. Okay. Nowadays industry moving towards microservices. What does it mean is, let's say you have developed an application just like whatever we're doing, right? Cricket application. You started developing cricket application. Okay. This cricket application, what and all it will have? Teams and its details. Teams details and players details. And then different series and different platforms like test matches, one-day matches, 2020, and then results of each matches, and then live board. These many different functionalities has been developed, right? So I don't know what is left. Let us know. Yeah. So here if you see, there is a results, there is a fixtures, live, and there is some real-time happening things, and there are commentaries and analysis and evaluating the best players. There are a bunch of things that has been segregated into this application, right? So what happens if you develop application like this, everything into single application? Whatever you see here, everything into single application and deploy into a server. What happens if I modify this piece, right? There may be something tightly coupled between some logic tightly coupled, and so you need to test this piece also, whether you by modifying this, did you broke this? By modifying this, did you change the functionality here? And moreover, by modifying this, it may happen something to this in real time. You may not find it in compile time, you will find it in real time. So these are the modules here tightly coupled, one under each other. They are tightly coupled, right? Technically they are tightly coupled, but business point of view, they can see it as separate services. But technically, as you kept in a single application, they are all tightly coupled. So nowadays what they are coming up with is, why not we keep these services separately, so that, and moreover, right, let's say another thing is, so live score, a lot of people, like whoever goes to Cricket Info, most of the times they are interested in looking at the live results, so they will go to this page. So this application, a lot of people will go, and very few people will go and read about this news. So this functionality may be used less, but this functionality has been used. This functionality is used by one time. Let's say this functionality used by 10 times. So in order to serve the traffic, in order to bring up the performance of this application, you need to deploy this piece as well multiple times, so that application will be, you are unnecessarily, even though there is very less traffic to this piece, even though there is very less traffic to this piece, you are still making them more available because of, as you are increasing the functionality, as you are increasing the what you call number of servers for this piece. In order to serve this piece better, you are unnecessarily loading this logic again and again. Getting my point? Rather than that, what you can do, if you segregate this piece outside, then as this is used a lot, let's keep it in 10 servers. As this is used as very less, keep it in one server, right? Cost effective, right? So that is where micro experiences comes into picture. What they'll say is, if you can make certain pieces in your application separate, then keep them into separate applications. Okay. So let's say you developed separate applications like this, all the live application and cricket players applications, matches applications, results applications, and commentary applications. You developed separately. So you have one Tomcat here. Getting my point? You have one Tomcat running on 8080. What you will do? You deploy again. Same here, right? All applications. By doing this, you are not able to achieve what you want to, right? All you want to, independent of number. If you want to increase number of servers for this, you can increase. If you want to reduce number of servers for this service, you can reduce. You can't achieve by deploying all the services into a single Tomcat application. And if something goes wrong, it may have a side effects on other things, right? So they come up with, okay, so what you do, you develop a player application and you deploying into Tomcat server and bring up this Tomcat server. Rather than that, what they say is, what and all required to run this server? There are some libraries, right? Tomcat also another application that has been developed which will run as a server, right? So what and all the important pieces to run your application? Take those pieces, keep them inside your application. Reverse way. If Tomcat is there, let's say focus, okay? You have an application P1 and you have your own libraries, Spring libraries, all are 10 libraries are there, okay? And this is the Tomcat which is running on 8080. You have, which is having 100 libraries to run this application, to run this Tomcat. And you bring these 10 libraries and deploy it and run the application and get served whatever the purpose that you want. Among these 100 libraries, for your application to run, there may be 50 libraries required or 10 libraries required. Okay. What they will say, instead of deploying here, take those 10 libraries and deploy here in your application itself. So bring up in 9090 and write another application P2 which will have already 10 libraries and install the 10 libraries again here, run in 1080, different ports. So your application becomes a Tomcat server, your application becomes a server. Rather than taking your application and deploying into the Tomcat, your application itself become a server. That is what SpringBoot will do. You getting my point? You understand micro experiences, and where SpringBoot comes into picture, it is Spring will automatically bring up your application by getting all the Tomcat related libraries so that your application can be run whatever the port that you want. Okay, that is what called micro experiences. And so these micro experiences can be achieved in a different ways, different languages, different frameworks. But as we are learning Spring, we are using SpringBoot. Okay, makes sense? Enough theory. Let's go back to our programs. So what you need to do first thing, Spring Boot setup. All you need to do is, these are the files you need. So this is the Spring Boot starter web. Inside will be Tomcat web, will be Tomcat related libraries will be there, and you need to add this parent library. This is you going to add in your library, in your POM file, and you are saying your POM file, not only looking into my POM file, go back and look into this POM file as well. What is the artifact ID of this POM file? Spring Boot starter parent. This will be there in the Maven repository, and then it will download all the dependency platforms, dependency related. Okay, let's go ahead and do Maven project. Quick start. And then com bell info. Players. I'll call players app. Players Spring Boot, so that I can recognize easily, right? Yeah. So first thing what we need to do, open the strong form file. Dummy is there. All you need to do is copy this guys properly. See here in the bottom right, it will start building the application by downloading all the, if you want you can see by clicking this, it's building an application with all the libraries. Okay, so if you look at your Maven dependencies, you can see how many has been downloaded. Tomcat embedded, Tomcat related, Tomcat supportable, JAX and everything, Spring Web, everything will be downloaded. I think rather than this, sorry, let me see if I can. Did you see any Spring Boot application? It's okay. I mean, basically Spring Boot applications automatically you can download. Did I mention any step? Yeah. So next thing is, actually you can develop automatically, some files automatically will come into your folder. So that saves a lot of time, but it's okay. Doing it is nothing wrong, right? This app, right? I'll rename it as refactor players application. Okay. Okay. In this application, in order to make this application as Spring Boot application, right? In order to make this application as Spring Boot application, all you need to do is these three component annotations you need to apply. What are those annotations? At the rate, Spring Boot application, and then at the rate enable auto configuration, at the rate component scan. Here you can provide what and all the modules you need to see. You can tell them inside this package anything you can look at it. Base packages, right? That's what it's saying, right? Component scan, base packages, and then okay, this Spring application dot run, Spring application dot run, and then pass your player, pass your application dot args, right? Dot class args. Done. Now this application is Spring Boot application. What is Spring Boot? I keep on saying, right? How do you run this application? You don't, like I said, I mentioned I don't need to deploy into Tomcat. Then without deploying, how I'm going to run, right? What I'm going to do, run as mvn clean Spring Boot hyphen run colon run or hyphen run. Did I mention anywhere? Spring Boot yeah, mvn Spring Boot colon run. So by writing this, automatically this application will start running. By default, it starts running on port 8080. Let's see whether it is running or not, right? Forget one thing. Run as, let me check. Yeah. Spring Boot app. Earlier I just command, right? Rather than that, here Spring Boot app also will be their option, just like Maven build. Spring Boot app. So all you need to do is, yeah, you need to give the player application. That's it. So now if I run 8080, right? So localhost, all I need to do is /health. What happened? Let me do one thing. I'll do it from here. Okay. And see what MVN Spring Boot. Keep on forgetting. Spring-boot colon run. Spring-boot colon run. Something wrong. Address is already used. Maybe my server is already running. Let's stop this guy. What I will do, I'll give some other address. Okay. How can I provide some other address? Let me show it to you. There are different ways, but I'll show it to you here. Spring Boot -d server dot port equal to 9090. I'll say run on 9090, not 80. Default 8080 it will start to run. But some reason someone is using in my system, some other application using, so I'm trying to run this Spring Boot application on 9090. Okay. Okay. See, started application in 7.9 to start application hello world. So let's see whether I am able to access now or not. Sorry, I need to go 9090. See, application is running. Application is up. This is much memory, this much free space. So it's giving up some statistics. /health, who is this is Spring Boot provided. Now we're going to use this. Now your server is running 9090. You can write another application. You can write a cricket what do you call live application that you can run it on 12300 something, whatever number you want. Okay. How do you pass all these arguments? -d server dot -d options, MVN -d options. If you look, if you control C, it will stop, application will stop. And MVN -d help, if you keep it right, yeah, what it will do, it will show you -d options. -d is define, and then you are going to provide all the server related. So if you look at right, bunch of options will be there if you Spring Boot application. Getting started with Spring Boot. This guy will give you line by line explanation how to do, what to do, and all the things. But as a quick overview, I am doing here. Okay. Now, how do you make use of this Spring Boot application for your REST-based application, REST-based service, web services, right? So what you're going to do here, like typical way that day to day, what you're going to do, you write package dot controller or resource, whatever the name you want to, resource, and another package you will create dot model, and then you create if you want to talk to database repository. If you want to have service class, service folders, service. So you created the folders. Now, as my goal is to show you how to use REST, not how to write the end-to-end application, because I already showed you guys. So I'm going to create a class called players. Okay, player. Okay, something like that. Or else players. Okay. Players, and then I'll going to call it as another class player. Player. Nobody corrected, I did some mistake here. Okay, so players is what? A list of players, right? So I'll call it as array of players, right? Something like that. So player, array of players, something like that. Yeah. So what you need? Source, getters and setters. This is players. Player is private string name, private string avg score, private string role, something like that. Okay, not. Yeah, you can. Now, like I mentioned, my goal is only for resource class, player resource. So earlier we used to do all the blah 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 stuff, right? Now you don't need to do much, right? All you need to do is you need to convey this is the first class REST controller. By providing REST controller, you are saying this is where my REST my input should reach. This is where the first the request should first hit. Okay, and then request mapping value equal to, I'll say slash player, then here I'll say public players, I'll return players, get players. Okay, that's it, get players. If somebody calls get players, so how do you convey here? At the rate request mapping value equal to all comma consumes, I'll explain. Okay, media type dot application JSON produces equal to media type dot application JSON method request method dot get. Okay, so what you conveying here, if you look at here, so it should return for now null. Okay, so this is the ontology. If somebody calls, if this application is running 9090, if somebody calls localhost colon 9090 slash player slash all, then I should return all the players. So from here, calling service, calling database, all this logic we already know. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a list players equal to new. So rather than that, I'm just hard coding rather than getting from the database. That is not my intention, right? So I'm going to create it here itself, right? Just dummy values I'll create from here. Okay, then player p1 equal to new player, and then p1 dot set name, p1 dot what for, let's say p1 dot set role, p1 dot set average score, because this is one player details, right? So you're going to get bunch of players, this kind of details. What I will do, I'll write a separate method, private players load all players. I'll keep this logic here. Okay, so it can distinguish this is coming from the back. Okay, p1, p2, p2, p3. Okay, different players. Then what you need to do, you need to return let's. Okay, nice. So you need to call this load all players from here. All you need to do is load all players and then capture the results in some players list, and then return list. Yeah, maybe it's not liking it. Okay. So if somebody calls your application HTTP localhost /player/all, it should return all the players. How it should return? In a JSON format. If you call get method, right? That's all our goal. So quickly restart this application. You can feel it. JSON, how it is JSON, rather than explaining line by line. I kind of felt this is the better way. Run this in 9090. It failed. Cannot find symbol. 2819 cannot find symbol. What? Set name. Oh, I didn't save this application. Yeah, application is running. So as it is a get, you can call it through URL as well. No harm done. So localhost 9090. Your application is running 9090. What else you want? /player and then /all. Error. Why the hell? Maybe it didn't display. It can display, right? Unsupported media type. Application JSON value. Okay, so maybe it's not displaying here. What you can do is there is some different third party tools that has been available where you can run the test the REST calls. What you can do? Web store Postman. I think it should work. I was under the impression. Postman, add to Postman or REST template, whatever it is. Postman, you can take the Postman, checking, add app. It will add this app into your application. Okay, so this one is came here. So all you need to do is click on it. It will open separate tab kind of thing. Yeah. So this is how. So you can select here what kind of call you are making. All I'm doing is HTTP localhost :9090 /player/all. unsupported media type, I got an error. We need to fix it. Four on five. Oh, okay. Basically, I need to pass the header. Sorry. Little overwhelming for you guys, but I'll explain. I need to communicate what kind of input I am providing and what kind of response I am expecting. Yeah, players null. It returned null. Yeah, it returned null. I know why. Because you haven't keep these players into players. You haven't keep this each player into players list, right? So what you can do? Array of players, right? It's an array of players. So you need to keep dot set players, a list of players, right? Player of array p array equal to new player of, let's say 10, something like that. I need to add p array of 0. You can keep it in list also. I just write p array p1, p2, p3. Then dot set players, then p array. Now return players. Nice. Okay. Again, did we do mistake? Yeah. And then the players of 3 version p1, p2, p3. It's okay. Why remaining values are not coming up? Maybe I'm setting it to old one itself. This is regular mistakes we do. Nothing to do with Spring Boot, right? Because you set into P1. P1 even they created P2. After this session, right, go back and look at what I did, what I'm trying. I may be a little faster, but if you get a very happening projects, right, you most of the time end up writing these Spring Boot applications. Yeah, holy cow. Why Ramesh, Santosh? Again, see. See how easy to run the stop the application, and you don't need to go to the server, restart it and deploy it, all the stuff, right? You just run it, restart it, rerun it. It will compile, it will deploy it, it will bring up the application itself. Now see, let's run. Now see, okay. Yeah. See, if you look at, right, so we got a players list with name, average score, each one. So this is called a JSON. A JSON with list of arrays, JSON structure. Each one is like, a list of players is represented in JSON format. The best format to communicate your data between the systems is, as of today, is JSON. JSON is very easy to parse. Now see, I go to the players, and then players that you will go to each and every list and look at the each player details and parse it. Okay. So now your what you called AngularJS or JavaScript or whatever it is, it can easily pass this JSON object and display the results in the UI. We are not doing UI because my goal is to show you REST and Spring Boot and microservices. You get my point? So if you write another method, give me a player name. Like, let me show you. I want to, yeah, just like there are separate operations are there for post also. Players void post player. Okay, return just success. Okay, and this one I just copy this by this piece, request mapping. This time not all, just player and store, something like that. And this method is post. Okay, and then I'll say here @request body player. Okay, something like player stored successfully, player stored. Okay, here you will get the player value automatically. So if you want to display, you can display here. You can say player. You can say string. Okay, Nice. So let's run this application again. I need another one. This is get all players. I'm going to write another one. Store. And headers is of type same. Accept. Content type. I'll tell you this one. I haven't forgot. So you're communicating. You're saying that I'm sending data in application JSON format. You also respond back with me in application JSON format. So this accept and content type will be mapped to this producer and consumes. Okay. So here if you say applications.xml and if you have application JSON here, then it will say mismatch happened. I couldn't understand. Okay. Now this second method that we wrote is method of type post, and you need to pass the request body as player, and you need to call /store and with JSON value, media type and application JSON both. So you kept post, right? When you go to post, body will be enabled. Here in this body you can keep raw data. Raw data is you need to pass a player info, right? A player is nothing but this piece. So this is the input you are passing, asking them to store it. Unexpected P. Maybe it couldn't able to pass it. Player stored successfully. See, this is what you got. And if you look at the log here, you may be displayed here. You getting sense, right? What I'm trying to say. So here you are trying to pass the data from the system, from from Angular JS or whatever JavaScript or from UI system, and trying to store that data. So you're asking by calling this method, save whatever the information that I pass as a body. Okay, so there are different methods, get, delete kind of thing. So the four important methods here are get, delete, post, put. Okay, just like insert, select, update, delete in the database. Okay, so next thing is what kind of data you want, what kind of data you are expecting, what kind of data you are sending it to the server, map to what kind of data you are expecting, what kind of data you are sending it back. What kind of data this method, this application, this method can consume is, it can accept a player object in JSON and it can return it back in JSON. You getting my point? So this is application JSON value, that's what you used. So we cite /all/store. You're going to write, you can write put on these things, and all you need to do is here, from here onwards you need to call service layer. From service layer call this repository layer, save it into the database. That logic we already have in another application, right? You got my point? This is all we do with so REST. What is REST is, this is the ontology. How when you are writing the structure, you need to make by reading store, player store, which means he is going to store the player, he is going to store the player information kind of thing. So did we anywhere configure like MVC or like return this blah and view resolver blah blah blah? You haven't configured anything. It's simple, right? You haven't defined any dispatcher servlet in application startup, right? Init files, init configuration, or web.xml, or your some Spring XML configuration. Anything, you haven't done anything, right? Simple with annotations which has been done. Now you can write another application called live. Run it on 1010. Same time you can run different applications in the same server, the different servers in the same system. That's the beauty of That's the beauty of Spring Boot or micro experiences and REST. Okay, yeah, that's it for today. And I will take 2 more classes, maybe Sunday one class and another class later, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, thanks man.